Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that every single person in your village had completely vanished. No bodies, no signs of struggle, absolutely zero warning.
I mean, picture this. Breakfasts are literally just sitting there, untouched on the tables. Doors are left wide open to the freezing cold. Some fires are even still crackling in the hearths. But the people? Just gone. It honestly sounds like the opening scene of a Hollywood thriller, right? But the terrifying thing is, inexplicable disappearances exactly like this have actually happened throughout history. And one forgotten case remains terrifyingly real today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're digging into the chilling story of a village that nobody could explain. This is a historical mystery that still totally confuses and terrifies researchers to this day. So let's start from the beginning.
Chapter 1. The Quiet Village, an isolated mountain community.
To really grasp the sheer terror of this event, we kind of have to understand just how peaceful this place was before the nightmare started. Situated way up high in the mountains, far, far away from any major cities, only a few hundred people lived here. They lived a super simple farming life, working the fields by day, and at night, just a few lanterns lighting up small wooden homes along narrow dirt roads. It was so secluded that most outsiders barely even knew the village existed, and that extreme isolation, well, that's likely exactly why the dark events went totally unnoticed for so long, and why the story spread so slowly to the outside world.
Chapter 2. Signs in the Shadows, the weeks before the vanishing.
And this brilliantly illustrates the timeline of mounting dread. Because according to local records, a creeping unease began to infect the town long before that final night. Weeks prior, animals started becoming highly aggressive. Dogs were relentlessly barking through the night at completely empty forests. Then came these midnight sightings of silent lights just moving between the trees. Soon, the nights were pierced by these totally unexplained metallic sounds echoing from deep inside the mountains. At first, nobody took it seriously, but then the true horror began.
People actually started disappearing, one by one. First, a farmer just failed to return home. Then, a woodcutter vanished without a trace in the forest. Finally, two brothers disappeared while traveling between the nearby hills. Fear slowly suffocated the village. Some folks believed dangerous criminals were hiding nearby, while others whispered that the mountain itself was cursed. But nobody, and I mean nobody, expected what was coming next.
Chapter 3. The night everything changed. A sudden silence.
So, let's drop into that cold evening where everything just stopped. Villagers had gathered inside their homes earlier than usual that night. A heavy, suffocating fog rolled into the valley, completely swallowing the settlement. According to one nearby traveler who happened to be passing by, the village was uncharacteristically dead. There was no music, no conversations, no movement of lanterns, just an eerie, absolute silence. The traveler pushed on toward the next town, thinking absolutely nothing of it, until the next morning.
Now, what's really interesting about these findings is the sheer amount of everyday domestic evidence left behind. A group of traders arrived the next morning expecting to buy supplies, but instead, they found a ghost town. Food sat totally untouched on tables. Doors were left wide open to the elements. Clothes were still hanging outside. One house actually had a pot still warming above a burning fire, but there were no people. And crucially, there were no bodies, no blood, no signs of violence or any kind of attack anywhere.
Chapter 4. Footprints into Nowhere. The Impossible Search.
So how on earth does an entire community evaporate? The authorities stepped in to find out, but what they discovered only deepened the mystery. Investigators reported, and I quote, "It was as if the entire population had simply stood up and walked away into the fog." That quote really captures the haunting, cinematic reality they were dealing with. It completely defies all logic.
The search efforts were desperate and honestly, totally impossible to logically explain. First off, search teams actually found footprints leading away from the village, hundreds of them, men, women, and children. But after several kilometers, the tracks abruptly ended. They literally just vanished into thin air. Search dogs were brought in, but they lost the scent entirely. And ultimately, absolutely no campsites, no belongings, and no mass graves were ever discovered. Nothing.
Chapter 5. Theories of the Vanished. Trying to explain the impossible.
So the crucial point is, this complete lack of evidence birthed some wild speculation. Rumors just exploded across the region. One leading idea was the mass panic theory, basically that villagers feared an approaching disaster and fled into the night together. But actually, scratch that. It falls apart immediately when you look at the facts. If you're fleeing in absolute terror, why do you leave behind your food, your money, and your livestock? And more importantly, where did everyone go?
Other major theories quickly popped up. Some scientists suggested toxic gas, underground environmental poisoning that caused mass confusion and panic. Others leaned into a much darker military removal theory, claiming the village was secretly evacuated or taken during some regional political conflict.
But here's the thing. Once again, the evidence falls completely flat. Investigators found zero physical proof of toxic gas. And as for the military theory, not a single official document or record has ever confirmed military action in that area. Of course, this blew the door wide open for supernatural theories. Stories of underground tunnels, alien encounters, ancient curses, creatures in the mountains, the whole shebang. While obviously impossible to prove, these stories spread so deeply that fear quickly replaced curiosity. Hunters and travelers simply stopped going near the area.
Chapter 6. A Mystery Unsolved. Reclaimed by Nature.
Let's move to the present day and see how this all settles. Because as the years turned into decades, the physical memory of the village began to fade. Nature slowly reclaimed the abandoned settlement. Those small wooden homes eventually collapsed, and the narrow dirt roads completely disappeared beneath thick plants and mud. Today, very little remains to prove anyone ever lived there at all. There's no final message, no trace of the hundreds of souls who called it home. Just an unsettling truth that nobody truly understands what happened that night.
So, what does this all mean? Maybe there's a logical explanation buried somewhere in lost records, just waiting to be unearthed. Or maybe, are some mysteries simply never meant to be solved? It's a terrifying thought to leave you with today. If you found this explainer fascinating and want to join us for more forgotten mysteries, dark history, and unexplained events, make sure you subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.